Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear viewers. I am Professor Dr. Muhammad Usman, and in this very short video we are going to discuss the structure and function of a typical neuron. You know that a neuron, it is the basic structural and functional unit of our nervous system, and our nervous system is made up of about more than 100 billion neurons. Okay, and neuron or nerve cell, it is one of the two excitable tissues in our body. You know there are two excitable tissues in our body. One is nerve and other is muscle. Excitable tissue is one in which can be excited. Okay, which can be excited means that in this tissue we can generate a nerve impulse or action potential. Okay, so such a tissue is called excitable tissue. Can you tell me the functions of a neuron, a typical neuron? Yes, there are three basic functions of any typical neuron. Reception of the stimulus. The stimulus can be electrical, chemical or mechanical. Simple touch is a stimulus. Then the light which is falling on our eyes and we perceive light, this is also a stimulus. And so there are various stimuli. So neuron, they receive the stimulus, then they generate the nerve impulse, which is also called action potential. It is basically a signal which is transmitted to the various parts of the body, and then it also transmits the nerve impulse or action potential. So these are the three basic functions of any neuron. I repeat, they receive the stimulus, then they generate the nerve impulse or action potential, and then they also transmit the nerve impulse. Now likewise, there are also three basic parts in the structure of neuron. As you can see here, it is dendrite, then axon, and then soma or cell body or perikaryon. Now dendrite, now this is that portion of the neuron which is concerned with the reception of stimulus. We just talked that neuron performs three basic functions. So this dendrite part of the neuron, this is concerned with the reception of the stimulus, and they have got a branching pattern. Okay, as you can see here. The next is axon. Okay, axon is the longest process from the neuron, and this is the portion which generates nerve impulse or action potential and transmits it. Okay, the impulses are transmitted along the axon. The axon, it terminates in axon terminals. Okay, axon terminal, or these are also called synaptic knobs or synaptic buttons, and basically these are the portions of the neuron which make connection with the next neuron, and via synaptic transmission happens in the synapse. Okay, we will talk about that in the next video. Now axon is the longest process. Combined dendrite and axon, they are also called distal cell processes. Okay, dendrite and axon, they are together, they are also called distal cell processes. Now the third part, it is the most vital part of the neuron. It is the cell body, or it is also called soma or perikaryon. Now this contains nucleus, cytoplasm, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, and all the other things which are present in a typical cell. Besides, there are two very special things which are present, and I'd like to mention those which are present in the soma of the neuron. This is neurofibril, which are present in the peripheral parts of the soma or cell body, neurofibrils. This is the enlarged image of a neurofibril. As you can see here, these are all neurofibrils. So what are neurofibrils? Basically neurofibrils, they are components of the cytoskeleton. Okay, and they are formed by the clumping of microtubules and intermediate filaments. You know that there are three basic components of cytoskeleton, the skeleton of the cell. These are microtubules, intermediate filaments, and microfilaments. So by the clumping of the microtubules, or you can say neurotubules, and intermediate filaments, and they are also called neurofilaments, these neurofibrils are formed, and they serve to perform two basic functions. They give support to the neuron, like any component of the cytoskeleton, they give support to the this neuron, and they maintain the shape of this soma or cell body. Plus they also serve to transport substances from the soma to the distal cell processes. They run in the direction from the soma to the axon and dendrite, which are distal cell processes. So they serve to transport substances from the soma to the distal cell processes, that is to the dendrites and axon. Now another thing which you find here in the soma, it is this Nissl substances. So you are saying here multiple Nissl substances. Basically they were discovered by a scientist, Franz Nissl, and they are named after him. What are Nissl substances? Basically these are rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so they are concerned with the synthesis of proteins. The axon which you are seeing here in this neuron, you will be observing a unique thing over the axon, and it is basically myelin sheath. Okay, myelin sheath, which is a lipid material, and it is formed by the Schwann cell. Okay, myelin sheath is formed by the Schwann cells, and it serves to insulate the axon from the surrounding environment. It serves to increase the impulses of the which are generated in the axon. So this is myelin sheath. Basically we have got two types of neurons, myelinated ones and non-myelinated ones. Here you are seeing a myelinated neuron in which myelin sheath is present, and it is secreted by the Schwann cells. Now I told you that cell body or soma is the most vital part. If it is destroyed, the entire neuron dies. So this is very important. Now another portion of the axon which I will like to tell you, it is called axon hillock. Axon hillock, basically this is the part of that part of the cell body from where the axon originates. Okay, axon hillock is that part of the soma or cell body from where the axon arises. Now axon hillock, this one plus the initial 100 micron of the axon, initial 100 micrometer of the axon, this portion together, it is called initial segment, or you can say trigger zone. This portion is always unmyelinated. Even in the myelinated axons, this is unmyelinated. And why we are so concerned about this? Because this is the portion of the axon where action potential or impulse is generated, and this is the area with the highest excitability in any neuron. That is why the impulse is generated here. Then it is transmitted along the impulse after generation, it is transmitted along the axon. Okay, and in the axon terminal you will find various neurotransmitter vesicles which contain neurotransmitter substance. When the impulse comes here, the neurotransmitter vesicles, they secrete their contents, that is neurotransmitter, and then they will mediate the synaptic transmission and make contact with the next neuron. Another thing which happens in the axon, it is the axonal transport. Okay, axonal transport. Now axon, it cannot synthesize proteins because axon does not have Nissl substance. It is dependent on the soma or cell body for its proteins. Axonal transport, it is the process in which various substances, they are carried away from or towards the soma along the axon, and they are carried on the microtubules. Okay, microtubules, as you all know, microtubules, they are the cellular highways, okay, or motorways you can say. So on the microtubules along the axon, various substances are transported to and fro from the axon, and this transport is called axonal transport. Now this is of two types: anterograde, that is in the forward direction away from the axon. This type of anterograde transport, it is carried out by a protein which is called kinesin. Okay, kinesin, as you can see here, it is carrying various secretory vesicle or neurotransmitter vesicle, and it is moving away from the axon, and it will offload its contents in the axon terminal. Now there is another protein which is called dynein. Okay, this is dynein protein, and this moves substances in the reverse direction. This is called retrograde transport. So these are the two types of transports which occur along the axon. Hope you would have understood the basic function and structure of neuron in today's video. If it is so, please consider subscribing to this channel. Happy learning to all of you. Allah Hafiz.